everyone. Please help me welcome Kanika to the Heal with Kat podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Kat. It's lovely to be here.
I'm really excited to talk about the Akashic Records with you. Like I was just telling you before we pressed record, I've never had somebody on the podcast to talk about this world, really is what I'll call it. And I have a little bit of experience when I was first doing intuitive training and really turning on my intuition about 5 years ago. The woman that I was doing a program with named Nikki Novo, she had an exercise to go into the Akashic Records. And I remember the high of leaving that and then realizing I didn't have permission to go in again. And I want to touch on the permission with the Akashic Records and kind of like what it is. So could you start off by telling us your story with it and how you got into it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm also very surprised you don't have permission. Okay, but let's dial back. There might be
Well,
people
maybe
who are
back
just.
then I didn't.
Yeah, okay. I'll just start perhaps with what are the Akashic Records so that people can understand what we're talking about. And here's how I'll give the example. Imagine yourself in a car and you're stuck in the traffic jam. So you know that there's a car next to you, they're waiting, and you can sort of see a few, maybe one or two car ahead of you. You understand, maybe Google Maps tells you that, okay, it's a long stop, right? You understand that, but you don't really know what happened, what caused the traffic jam. Now, imagine as if you got wings to fly. You flew up, and there was a magical part of you that goes up and it goes like, wow, okay, I see the traffic jam is maybe 1 kilometer long. There was a tree that crashed on the highway, so this is what's causing it. And then you want to know, okay, how do I get out of this? So it tells you, okay, this is what you can do. This is what you can, your shortest route, and so on. That's a little bit of what the Akashic Records do. Whatever you are stuck with in life or anything where you want to get a little bit more guidance, that's what the Akashic Records can do. They literally give you the ability to fly high up and really understand your life from that perspective. But this is where it gets even more magical. The Akashic Records understand you right now, so the current traffic jam, but they also understand your stories, your growing up stories, like what was happening in your childhood, the programming that you've had. They understand your thought patterns very deeply. And I'll give you an example with technology. Sometimes, I don't know if you've subscribed to Google Map notifications, but it's amazing when they tell you, like in the month of May, you spent or you went to this destination 5 times, you went here 10 times, you spent 30% of your time going here. And it's like, what? I didn't know that. Like, I did that. I didn't know that.
Kind of creepy in some ways.
But that's just for you. I hope they're not sharing it with others. But yes, they have that much information. If you could perhaps check your Instagram clicks or your Facebook clicks or just your clicks normally on the internet, imagine as if somebody is looking at, well, this ads about this or reels about this topic. This is what you've been looking at. That's a little bit like what the Akashic Record does. Like it has so much deep insight into you that sometimes you don't know. You're living your life, but you haven't looked at your life that way. That's what flying up high above gives you. Like, oh, this is what's happening. And then they know your story, not from just this lifetime. Imagine that that story is for all the lifetimes, all the incarnations that you've had. So it's a very total, fuller picture of you. We get impacted by our childhood patterns, our inner child shadow work, as people would know it. We get impacted also by our past lives. For example, someone could have had maybe a child loss in one incarnation. And so the body just remembers that, oh, that was a very traumatic experience. And in this lifetime, they might be infertile because body is still thinking and associating with that. Then we might have some ancestral wounds, ancestral stories, like stories that run in our families, stories about drug abuse or stories around struggling with money or even any medical disorders and so on. which may or may not be genetic, actually. There's a lot of just those things that just run in the family. Like everybody gets diabetes, and it does not necessarily have to be genetic, or they'll have certain types of cancer, which do not, again, have to be genetic, but it just runs in the families. So that is information that the Akashic Records hold. When you start tapping there, you can start understanding your story and healing that story at a much, much, much deeper level.
Oh my gosh, it's incredible, honestly. It's like a library. It's like a library of all of your lifetimes, and it holds all the information, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I think this is where I want to bring everybody to, just touching on permission. Nobody has to give you permission to go and access the Akashic Records. Like, yes, I'm an Akashic Records reader. There'll be people who'll have their channel a lot more open. But I fully believe that whenever we're getting any information, because Akashic Records is this field that just stores all the information for all that is in existence, we're all basically just picking it up from there. Any intuitive hit that you've had, it is coming from your Akashic Records. So don't let anyone tell you that, this is how you do it and so on. You're literally walking around, getting into that slice and pulling your information there without always really knowing it.
Okay, that's really interesting that you say that. And I really respect that perspective because I will say that I have met quite a few people in my life who have worked with the records and have told me, and this is something I've heard from different people multiple times, that you have to have permission to work with the Akashic Records. And so I attempted to do a meditation, and I work as an intuitive and as a medium. And I went into the meditation and I just saw black the whole time. I saw nothing. So I wonder if it was just like a coincidence, or maybe my brain was already telling me like, "Oh, you're not allowed," or something. But it was very interesting. I've only been in like one or two times in the formal sense, but it does make so much sense about what you're saying, that when I do mediumship and when I do family constellation therapy, I can't name the exact energy field that we're pulling this information from, but I know that it's somewhere there and we're tapping into it. So it sounds like the Akasha Records is like that.
Yes. And everything is operating from our beliefs. Our beliefs really make the whole world for us. I think if people could just start maybe even exploring with this idea, it would be so phenomenal. So I fully believe we are all coming from this divine source for our galaxy, one divine source where everything started from, right? And if everything started from there, then you and I, everybody listening to this, it does not matter what you are doing, what someone's told you, how you are feeling about yourself. You are divine, literally as you are. Like there's nothing else needed to it. Any gods, any goddesses that you think of, I would argue that we are like them, like exactly like them. Like they're divine in their sense, and we are divine in our sense, because we all come from the same spark. We've come from the same source. So we have entitlement, all of us, the same way. Earth especially has this vibration of free will and love. So you'll find that, and again, both of these things have a lot of energies attached to them. So Earth has a vibration of free will, as in all of us, we have free will around what we believe, what is the world that we create around us. So we can have access to anything. It is stopped by our imagination. It is stopped by our beliefs. It is what people have told us. Why does someone else have agency on you? Unless you are accessing their Akashic records, because that is their free will. But if you're accessing yours, it is your information. Like, why does somebody else have the access to your library and you don't? It's like you don't have the keys to your house and somebody else does. Like,
Yeah, it just brings up this idea of like this theme in the spiritual industry around like gatekeeping, like this hierarchy, spiritual hierarchy of gatekeeping, where like you're not good enough because X, Y, and Z. Like I have clients that have never been trained in family constellation therapy, but they try to do constellations at home. And would I recommend training? Yeah, it's a huge field, but can you play around in it? I mean, it's a God field. So like, I'm not going to gatekeep it from other people, right? Like, it is what it is if people want to explore their own self.
and you're right in terms of bringing it around gatekeeping, but I would say that it's my free will, whatever's happening in my space, and I allow with my beliefs, or I allow someone else to gatekeep. Now, there might be an element of protection that I want to protect it from the darker entities and the darker beings. And so this is how I work with my clients or students. And I always tell them that you just have the intention that I'm just allowing love and light, and just let that be in the intention, let that guide you. There's a lot of things that we can do as well once you start working with energy, or any intuitive channeling and so on. There's just a lot of things that you can play around with. And sometimes in the beginning, or sometimes even during the time, let's say if I see a darker entity and they can play games, and so I might see it sort of like an angelic figure, but it feels a little bit dicey. And so I'm going, well, what is this? Like, this is totally divine, or is this light, or is this dark, and what am I supposed to do here? So I don't like making that judgment call, because I don't want to be banishing something that is not okay. But I always hook it up to source, and I then give that power and say, well, you're seeing more than I am doing, so you do what is just with this right now. And that's all that I'd say to everybody else. Like, as long as your intentions are really pure, and there's some decision points where I'll just hook it up to source. But for me, that's the ultimate. And there's no other gatekeeper. I have my free will. Everybody else, by just the virtue of being born here, we all have free will. Like, it's a birthright. Not please, not like, may I have it? No, it is your birthright. Like, claim it like a little child. Stomp your feet and go, I claim my free will, because you should, because it is yours.
Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. I was listening to a podcast episode this morning with Dr. Gabor Mate, and he was saying that so many of us have so many different birthrights that we don't realize that we have until we become older, but the need to be seen, or the value of being seen and being loved and being important, like that is a birthright. So then you're talking about the birthright of free will. I'm like, everyone's talking about birthright today. Like it's so symbolic, but no, I really appreciate you sharing that important reminder. And yes, with energy work, it's important to have discernment, to work with source. I mean, I go straight to source as well, and it's important to know what you're working with within this world. And I was going to ask you, do you ever come across some energies that are negative, or like just not in your highest and best good with this work, but it sounds like you do, and you just know how to navigate it?
Yeah, and I think it's a good point as well, because a lot of times, maybe not all the spiritual people are as open about it. They don't want to talk about it as much. Or, we just might have misconceptions. We get scared. A little bit of what you said, that when people don't see, or when you were seeing the black screen, when you were trying to access the Akashic Records, that can be the beliefs. Sometimes it's also we get scared because they're scary. They can be big, gigantic, or shadowy beings, and we don't know what's going on. We could just get scared. But the more you own your sovereignty, you realize that, oh, because you have a body, and because this is your space, like, this is your space, this is your house, this is your car, whatever. Like, nobody holds that right. It is just your birthright.
Yeah. No, birthright. I'm just going to name every podcast that we talk. It's going to be birthright episode. I did one earlier today talking about that too. I've heard in the past that with the Akashic Records, sometimes there's an initiation that you go through, similar to like shamanism, where you go through this process that really like tests how deep you can go with it. Did you experience that? Is that another like myth of the Akashic Records?
And I think that there was so much energy there, which is why I just blanked out for a minute.
Okay.
And I'm sure there are just lots of entities going on right now, which are like, what the hell are you doing? You're just giving people permission for everything. And initiation, or I would say the Akashic Records, have a very high vibration. And the more and more you get into that, like the more you start playing into the field, you just start seeing more, you understand that more. So I suppose in that sense, it's an initiation, but it's almost like the more you do it, no, that would be the wrong way. Not doing it, it's more around how much you can access, how much you can know. It's more around like layers, right? So the more, for me personally, what I found is that as I've started working with the Akashic Records, there used to be a process, so I'm by background an engineer.
Okay.
An MBA professional, a project manager, so very, very process oriented. This is just amazing how I got here. But So I'm very, very process driven. And very early on with my work, there were steps to follow, right? Like do this, do this, do this. And there's merit in that. But what I've found, the most beautiful work, the most profound things that happen when I can let go. Like, honestly, the more I let go, I'll have other entities. So I'll have the light beings, I'll have sometimes Mother Mary come in, or I'll have the other angels come in and they'll start doing things. And there is just such a fun way to learn as well. So it is an initiation always in that sense. Like sometimes when my clients are talking about there was this lady who wanted to understand what's going on with her female, like she was just having thrush again, and then candida again, candida and thrush, and then some bacterial infection. Like she was just going through a cycle. She wanted to understand that. So as I tune into my clients and I start seeing things and I take away myself from the picture, I start understanding the whole consciousness of it. So in that sense, it just becomes an initiation because I learned so much. Like there's so much that now I've learned around the womb portal. I never knew about it. But in that sense, it becomes the initiation because I get to know more and more and more. And it's just fascinating how that happens. I've been discovering ancestral healing in a whole different way and understanding grounding in a whole different way. Um, and it is amazing. I wish sometimes I could bring pictures or visuals enough to be able to share with the world that, look, there's this exciting part that's happening.
Yeah.
And we live in our physical lives, not usually aware.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because as I'm zooming out from these first few questions that we're chatting about, I'm really realizing that I'm sad that the Akashic records were tainted in my mind in that way, because the way that you present it, it's so permissive. Like it's just, you have the permission to just tap into this beautiful light, and I mean, as we're talking, I can feel this high vibrational energy coming into the conversation, almost as if my guides are like, stop talking about the negative stuff, talk about the stuff you really want to ask, which are the questions that are coming. But part of my curiosity in chatting with you today is challenging these old stories that I've been told around the Akashic records, that if you're not good enough, you don't have permission and you need to do this. And it's like, oh no. So thank you for just like being heart centered and so loving with this permission that everyone has to explore their own records and use wonderful facilitators like you to have access to this.
This is just such a big myth. It is such a big myth. So, how I see the Earth, imagine Earth as a center in the globe, and then see a layer around it, almost like the atmosphere. So, if you want to imagine the Earth as a circle and then a bigger circle or a bigger globe around it, bigger sphere around it. And imagine two spheres, right? So, this is the first sphere that I see. And this one is a lot darker for me. This one's a lot grayer, very dark silver, even blackish. And that's what I call as the dark grid or the control grid, the 3D vibration that has a lot of lack, that has a lot of control to it. And it's illusion because beyond this is like a golden sphere. And that golden sphere is all love and light. And so here's the interplay, right? A lot of times when we come onto Earth, we get hooked into the dark grid. Now, not to like scare people, but the lack that we feel, that's coming off because somewhere we are attached to this sphere. We are attached where we feel like, oh, we're limited in some way. We are limited in terms of money or the opportunities that you have. And I just ask you to see the illusion for yourself. Whatever you feel is true and you feel limits you, whatever, go on YouTube, go on Google, look at people around you. You will find the opposite examples. If you feel like just proper, good, honest relationships cannot happen, go out and you will find some people, even if you don't know them personally, but you will find them. So there are definitely people who are not operating from that programming. If you feel like money opportunities are limited, there's something else that's happening, right? So this is the control, this is the lack, and they're both hand in hand. We try to control because someone else is controlling us. Like I feel there's a lack, so I've got to control, you've got to win, right? And this is just, I will win and then the other loses, or if the other wins, I lose. This is the gray, the dark grid, the other vibration. And this is the more and more you start channeling, or you just start opening your channel more, you're connected more to light, you're more trusting, you're more in the flow, you're more in the higher vibrations of gratitude, you're more in the higher vibrations of seeing what is good in your life as opposed to seeing what is missing in your life. That's how you travel up. So it's really easy. That is flow, that is ease. And this is where all the limits, they don't exist. So the people who have what you don't have, and the more and more they have more of that stuff, chances are that they're vibrating with that gold grid. And this is the grid of consciousness. This is the grid of love. Love as in feeling good about everybody, not carrying grudges inside you. Maybe someone else harmed you. I'm not saying that you have to go and love them and look after them. I'm not saying that, but loving just means that, hey, I see you. I'm not going to get triggered by it anymore, but I see you, and I'm not going to send you hatred. I'm not going to feel anything negative here. I'm just in my zone. I see you. You can do you, and I'm very happy to be dancing by myself. That's it. And then there are other people who you would feel are a lot more in light. So you're more in like alignment with them and engaging with them a lot more. But it's literally this dark grid and the gold or the consciousness grid, which is where we play. But because we are on earth, and then we get clouded, it gets foggy with the control, with the lack. Like, look at the media, look at everybody around you almost.
Fear, yeah.
So we cannot see through the light. We cannot see through what is available to us. And that's why we all just live in this illusionary world, but you can have whatever you want to have. And you can choose to unplug from the dark grid and go onto the gold grid.
Well, and it's interesting because it just also shows the duality of what it's like to be on Earth. Like you said, for every negative thing that you see, you can immediately go see a positive one online. Like there's something for everybody on Earth. And I almost wonder if that darker grid that you're explaining is almost self-created. We feed into the illusion so much that then it actually becomes an energy. And that's what I think darker energy is. It's like you just feed that fear so much that it actually takes on a persona and a vibration, and then it exists, which is so fascinating. Why would somebody want to come to you for the Akashic Records for something like ancestral healing? Because I know that you shared that. I work with family constellation therapy. A lot of the people that tune into this community are very curious about how we can evolve spiritually and psychologically through ancestral healing. So what are some of the specifics that you know people would come to you for?
Well, people come to me for lots of things. Usually they come in, obviously, when things are not going well for whatever reason. They might come in because they have a custody battle. They might come in because they've lost kids, because I have that background. So I tend to attract a lot of that as well. They might sometimes come in to get guidance. They might sometimes feel blocked in their businesses. So there are just a variety of reasons why people come in. They might have some medical issues, or they might feel stalled in their life in some way. And that's why they come to me. And just tuning into the Akashic Records is really beautiful. My sessions are 1 hour. I spend probably about 15 minutes reading, and the rest of that is healing. And that is what I love about the modality, because it's good to have the awareness. It's good to fly up in the helicopter or with your wings and then go like, okay, this is what the situation is about. But if you haven't healed it, if you haven't worked from it, it does not shift your life as much. So I always go into the Akashic Records sessions, almost stepping back as a student myself, like, let's see, what journey are we on today? And then the guidance will start pouring in. Sometimes it could be the generational things. It could be a mix. It could be a generational thing. It could be in a child shadow, in a teenager work even, or it could be the past lives. Whatever has to come through comes through, and then we start healing and peeling back stuff from there. I'll give you examples, maybe that will make it clearer. There was a dad, for example, who came in because his ex was fighting and did not want to have him visiting his daughter anymore. She was like, well, I just want to take full custody. Her reasons for that, and you are only going to come and see her in my house. And they'd been doing 50-50 before that. So he was just getting really obviously triggered with that, but also wanted things that would be good for his daughter, because every child I suppose, needs both parents, at least if they are safe and loving and, there's no immediate danger to the child. I would advocate that mostly that is what is in the best well-being for the child as well. So as I started looking at him first, and I always look at my client's energy because we create our world outside, whatever is going on, it's not our fault, but whatever we have inside is what's coming on outside. So sometimes we might not be aware, we might have some hooks, some cords, like, we talked about the dark grid. So we might be attached with some lack in the dark grid, and we don't know that. And this is why a darker energy is coming in through our place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at him, and one of the things that I saw with him was that he had this warrior archetype in him. Like his previous lifetimes, he'd been a warrior, very successful, like highly regarded for his bravery and so on. And so what he was manifesting in his life was the thrill was now gone because we don't fight wars in this lifetime, right?
Not like we did back then, probably.
Yeah, not like that. Yes. So in his daily life, like he does a corporate job, it's just not as thrilling. So guess what? You have to make life thrilling. So there's drama to it. It's all drawn out. And then there's a low, and then there's a win, because that's how the warrior feels okay and feels like, yes, I deserve the win. And that's why things tend to go like way down and life feels very hard, because then there's a victory, a well-deserved victory.
Yeah.
So that was his past life programming that was coming in. So we cleared that so that he could have an easier life and he could just enjoy without it having to be so up and down and losing everything and then gaining everything, like just totally losing control of the child. And
Oh my
and,
goodness,
having
that's really powerful. I mean, it reminds me of something that Spirit shared with me a long time ago, because I've had people who want to come to me for FCT and put a past life in the field. And I'm very hesitant to do that because I would rather focus on the client today. And if there's any connection with the past life, time and space doesn't exist over there. So you're going to heal it for all of you in some regard. But Spirit has shared with me that we have soulic DNA, we have physical DNA, and then we have soulic DNA. And it's like all of the accumulation of the lives. And whatever is not healed in one lifetime, it does technically follow this. The vibration is still somewhat in your field when you cross over, and then you just carry it with you like baggage into the next one. And that is the reason why we reincarnate, is to keep working through all of these things that we're carrying so that we can evolve and grow and reach a point of, ultimate spiritual evolution where maybe we become a guide or something like that. But yeah, it is very interesting to think about how we find ourselves so linear when we're on Earth. We're born and then we die, and then people think there's like nothing after that. And it's like, honey, you have a lot of stuff you could go through if you really want to. But I love that it's always for the highest and best good of the person. Do you ever find that people come into the Akashic Records like in a fear mentality, that they just like want to control the narrative, and they kind of just forget like, hey, this is only to help you get better. It's not to, it's not for anything else other than to help you grow.
Yeah, yeah. And the more that you work with light, this is what I have. Sometimes it takes a while to explain this. But when you operate from the love and light, like when we try and control, it does not matter whether someone else is controlling us or whether I am controlling someone. Let's say if I could, right? I'm then just violating the very principle on earth, which is free will. If I'm violating someone else's free will because I'm controlling them, that's what I'm going to get back. That is the dark grid. If I'm playing in the dark grid, I'm going to get the dark grid back. Yeah. I'm going to get the lack. I'm going to get the control. Even if I win, that is the game that I will play. And watch people around in your life as well. Like, please just see, how do people play and what happens in their life. You'll find the correlation. So if I want to have control or I want to have sovereignty over my space, I've got to step up to the consciousness grid. I've got to be a lot more open. I've got to stop controlling everyone. And then it is counterintuitive to what we are taught on earth. But when you start doing that, because you are not controlling, you are not giving that vibration out, you're giving out vibration of openness, of flow, of alignment, of love. That's what you're going to receive back, because that's inner flow and outer flow. It will balance. Energy will always balance itself out. What are you giving out? That's what you'll get in. But can I also just give you an example of the story, like how our past lives really shape us, this sometimes helps my clients.
Please.
Okay, so imagine an apple, like just an apple. It could be a red apple, green apple, however you want. Just imagine an apple. And then imagine cutting it into like 1,000 slices, right? And pick up one slice. That little slice is you in this lifetime. And the rest of the apple is our soul. It is who we are, our oversoul. So sometimes when we look at the apple and we look at like my paper thin slice, because by the time I've done, and you might not have 1,000 past lives, but I'm just giving an example to help us understand that, oh, look, this is just the small part of who we really are. Our soul has the bigger story. And sometimes when we get traumatized in one lifetime or the other, our apple stops being that healthy. It gets a little rotten. So as we work through our lifetimes, when we start doing this healing work, we are healing away all those rotten bits and we are making that apple or the soul a lot healthier again. So when the whole apple starts getting healthy, then our vibration, what we feel on earth, that single slice, when you chop it, that comes out a lot healthier looking and tastes better as well.
It reminds me of Brian Weiss. I read all of his books, and he talked about how he would go into this past life regression, which I'd be curious to know your thoughts on its comparison to the Akashic Records. But he said that he would bring people into past life regression. He would talk to that version of them that is the past life version of them, and they would work through the issue, and then the person would come to into their current day self, and they wouldn't struggle with the issues anymore. And it just is so fascinating to understand that. Now, you could call it a placebo, but it works. Like it's not a placebo, but if for people who are challenged by that thought that this exists, because I know there's always going to be people who are like, oh, really? It's like, well, it works. So like, what's the harm if you're just trying to help people? But what is the difference? How would you describe the difference between past life regression and the Akashic Records? Hey everyone, it's Kat from the podcast with a little break in today's episode to share with you a really exciting offering I have called the Age Mapping 3-Day Mini Course. In just 3 days, we'll uncover the stories hidden in your family's past. By mapping the ages of key moments of trauma within your lineage, you'll begin to see how those moments could still be influencing your life today at those same ages. On day 1, you'll experience my powerful ancestral subconscious meditation. On day 2, we'll dive into the age mapping exercise. And lastly, on day 3, you'll geek out with me on the topic of epigenetics, which can explain the way that trauma is passed down generation after generation. The entire workshop is only $35. Are you ready to dive into your ancestral stories and heal for good? Go to katdow.com/agemap or visit the link in the show notes below. Your transformation starts with understanding your past right now.
Well, for me, the Akashic Records is just the overarching library, and it brings everything. For me, it brings the past lives. It brings whatever the person needs to have. Like with that client, when I was talking, and he had that warrior archetype going in him. This is a little bit similar to what we did as well, because, I looked at his warrior archetype, and then some of these things I like to have my clients do them with me as well, because I can see it visually. I'm a clairvoyant. I see it a lot more, but I want them to participate and feel that for themselves. So we worked with his warrior energy. We worked with that person, and we did some recalibration so that he was wired with new beliefs. But all those parts, coming back to the apple, those little rotten bits, the scars that we've had, they're all ours as well. We just need to bring them back and integrate them back into us. So we healed that part and we brought that back into light, and we got a lot more light in.
That's beautiful. And I hope that he was feeling free to be in his authentic energy, in his real, true soul source connected energy rather than that part of
But
it.
yeah, the session was amazing. So I worked with him, then I worked with him and his energy with his daughter, because I wanted to have a lot more fun and play there, and just for them to have a good, beautiful relationship. And then I had the mom, because she was trying to control the custody, remember? And so I had mom as a spirit just watch the whole interplay. So she got to watch the child with the dad, and she got to see her space, and it was like, okay, there's no comparison. Child's not doing well, mom's better or dad's better. child, if you think about love, we all want to have love from as many people as we can. So that's what the girl was doing as well. And so she saw that wasn't a threat. Connecting with dad or getting closer to dad was not a threat. It didn't mean that she was a bad mom. And then I joined all of them together as a family group so that they could be together and they could just have a nice parenting unit by themselves together. So that was the session, 1 hour. It was a lot of work. He obviously felt good during the session, felt a lot lighter. But this is what happened the next day. So he dropped his daughter off and dropped her off to mom after school. And then, of course, chatted with mom. And she's like, well, I think I was going overboard with this whole legal letter. And I think maybe we can just have it the way things were. And I don't need to do this for now. So it was one session. And this is how much energy it cleared because he just didn't need that drama anymore. And we just rewired the whole space. We'd just taken all the control out of it. That's how
You
transformative this can be.
Oh, I mean, I have full body chills. And I've always said family constellation therapy is not the only way. There's so many ways that you can heal family dynamics. And it sounds like the Akashic Records is one of them. And the way that you do it is so beautiful. And it feels so respectful towards the other, the dynamic going on. You said something very fascinating, which is that mom was operating from there's not enough love. So I have to make sure that I get my daughter's love and I have to take her away from her dad to get the love that I need. But it sounds like you reinforce this belief that there's enough for everybody and that the daughter deserves to have love from both and that's going to serve her and then mom understood her role and could understand her role with dad too.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of me stepping back and just allowing whatever light has to do by itself, like the light beings. We had a lot of angels working then. Mother Mary came in very strongly in that session and she was working. And the more I allow them to guide, I just have to step back. But also, when we are in this higher vibration, right? Akashic Records is a much higher vibrational field. I'm sure the family constellation therapy that you do, there's a much higher vibration in there. Like you can't go in there feeling really sad or just wanting to control someone, wanting to take revenge on someone. It just does not operate like that. So when we are in that space, and then when the clients are obviously with us going in that space as well, they're operating from a lot of light as well. And what that means is in terms of maybe hearing or connecting, right? Let's say you're tuning into channel 98.5 FM, but maybe if the channel is not okay, so on Earth or when it's controlled, it might feel like you want to tune into 98.5, but you're actually going to 98. So it's just very, like there's the signal is just weird. And how you feel that interference is you feel all these fight. You have all these back and forth and the defense and everything going on with that. Like it's all just really charged. It's not calm. It's like your voice is not being heard and you're not able to fully see the person. When you go to higher vibration, when you are tuning in with their higher self and your higher self, then all that excess negativity, that's all gone. And it's like you just talking to them and it's 98.5 connecting exactly with 98.5. There's no interference there. You get heard, you get seen just as you are. And it allows for a very beautiful communication to happen because ego is not operating there. And you are just able to see a lot more openly. So things work out a lot more openly. And often that time, like the spirits will look at it and they're like, they get a healing as well. Like mom was not with us in that session physically, but she got a healing as well. For her to be able to come around and go, well, I was wrong. Perhaps we should rethink this. Maybe we should not do this. Means she's had a massive shift as well. And somewhere she's feeling, she does not know what happened, but she's feeling like, okay, I don't have to control it with my daughter.
Beautiful. You mentioned you work with Mother Mary. I work very deeply with her. My background's kind of blurred, but I have a whole altar to her behind me. And I even have like a 9-day devotional prayer novena to her. And she's just probably the one being besides Jesus sometimes that I work with in this work. Would you mind sharing a little bit more about how you work with Mother Mary and anything that feels relevant to share with the community? Because I feel like my community only hears my version of working with Mother Mary. I'm like, we should hear somebody else's because she's with everybody all the time.
Oh, yeah. For me, she shows up a lot around, like, especially when there are motherly issues, miscarriages, female issues. We might have period pains. A lot of those issues, like all the reproductive system, that's where a lot that Mother Mary shows up for me because she heals that whole space. It's very much when I start working with her, she tunes into the creative energy that we all have. So, around our belly button, for people who don't know, just around there is where, if you go in a little bit deeper, that's where we have our sacral chakra. And sacral chakra is, or the second chakra, that's for our emotions, that's for our sexuality. And I think it gets underplayed like that a little bit because we think of it just as sex, but sex is also creation of life itself. So the place that could create life can create everything in your life. This is where our life force starts. This is where whatever we really want to do in this lifetime, all that passion comes from there. So Mother Mary, a lot of times what she's doing is she's helping reignite that life force because by the time we go through life, clients are going like, well, I had this hurt, this person said this, and so on. So our life force, think of it as water, and the water gets really muddy. Like it's not shiny, it's not sparkly anymore. It just feels very icky in the body, kind of like how you would feel before you're about to vomit. So it feels like that, and you're carrying that around. And by the time Mother Mary's worked with it, the vomity feeling obviously is gone, but it's just a lot more sparkly and they're a lot fuller of life. So if you think of this as the birthplace, because reproductive system is the birthplace, where whether we are a male or female, but this is where our spark comes from, whatever we want to create. But if you think of that as a juice, let's say how things are supposed to play out, then that juice is restored. Our life, the seed for that is restored to its place. And from there, then things can grow up and they can blossom and we can have our ideas coming up. Of course, the other chakras need to work as well, but this is Mother Mary's favorite place. That is what she does with me. She works a lot with water. She works a lot with healing, what we are meant to do, so which is our life force. She works a lot with that. I don't know if you have any specific questions, go on, because I could go on and on about like what she does. And if you want to know something in more detail, we can do that.
No, I work with her so deeply as well. I mean, most of the family constellations that I put in, I work with a lot of women with the mother wound. And so we're oftentimes like a lot of the mother wound is intergenerational. And so in the field, I'll put in a piece of paper behind all of the ancestors, like to symbolize the beginning of time of Mother Mary's like loving energy, just sending it through all of the generations of the women that need to feel. Yeah, the sacral chakra for sure is one that shows up. But for me, when it comes to working with the people and like the certain ancestors, she comes in to basically just to allow everyone to feel that they are loved no matter what they experience, no matter how much they're hurting. They deserve to be held. They deserve to be seen. I feel like she, through working with her in FCT, she's energetically kind of trained me into being that way with clients too. Non-judgmental, just witnessing people, seeing them, like hearing them, experiencing them. Like, I don't know, it's just been such a gift. And so I rarely meet other women who work. I mean, you've mentioned her so many times. I'm like, I need to ask because some people just mention her willy-nilly, but it really, yeah, I can tell that she really works through you and your work. And I just think it's so beautiful, especially with the mother wound.
No, and thank you so much for bringing that up as well. I love how you're talking about it and how she's explaining the healing modalities to you. Because also in this space is our womb portal, is like the portal where we were born, and the first time where we were born, right? Like not just this lifetime, but this is where we are connected with the void or the mother place of this universe, of all the universes. Void is that mother. So that's the energy that she comes in with. And this is why you find a lot of the ancestors there. The more you start doing, they're not there to limit you, control you, stop you in some sense, but they're almost like seeking a healing. Sometimes they don't understand what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to move on with their traumas. And so they're just in that space. And so the more you heal in this space, there's a lot of the intergenerational healing that happens with that. And I suppose it's not just actually the sacral chakra, but ancestral stuff, intergenerational stuff, that's just starts going down from there. This is where our body is. Like it's the root chakra, it's your earth star chakra, it's your feet chakra, and even further down. The more and more I go, I just feel like, oh, okay, that's a lot. We have a body. Where did the body come from? It came from the ancestors, and that's where we're all carrying that. But bringing Mother Earth there, and that's always the beginning, because she brings in and she restores the life force for us, then we can heal more, and then we can do more of that work.
Yeah, and you said that so beautifully as well. Just I want to reflect on this. That sometimes the ancestors come through in healings and they don't know what they're looking for, but they know that they're being called into this energy field for healing as well. And I do mediumship as well. And there are times where ancestors come in and they don't have a message, they're just present for the healing, they're just there. Sometimes I say it and sometimes I don't, because if there's no message, sometimes it's not really needed to say all the time. But I just ask them to please stand behind the client in their rightful role and be present for the healing. But it is so true that like people have this misconception that when we cross over, we're perfect again, that nothing is wrong, that we don't need to do any healing, that we're good. And it's like, yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. And also, you still go to school over there. You still have to go through healing over there. You're not full. Some souls don't fully cross over. They need your help to cross over. So it's just the more you get into this work, the more you become expanded as to how the spiritual world is not so black and white as we think it is. That's us trying to make sense of everything. It's actually really multidimensional. There's a lot of different experiences you can have as a soul when you cross over. And it's not like you're going to sit in some like cloudy place and you're just like, well, I'm just going to wait for everybody to get here. It's not like that. It's really not. And I thought it was for the longest time until I started doing this work.
Same. Like we just felt, well, if your grandmom or anyone is just coming to you in your dream, or there's an angel who's telling you something, then, that is great. There's so many probably misconceptions there, because, well, they could be telling you something, but that was right in their time when they were here on earth. Like there was a guy, and this is a secondhand story, but I heard the story like from a teacher, and who was talking about his client. And when he was teaching them how to call in healing guides to manifest more money. And so this guy also calls his healing guide and asks for money. And for that guide, when he'd incarnated, salt was a form of money. That is time before money had come in. So he wanted to have a lot more money, spoke with his guide and told him, well, I need to have a lot more money. And guess his drive yard was filled with salt. Like someone came in, whatever the story was, and someone came in and dropped like a whole lot of salt on his backyard. Because that's how that guide remembered at one time that this is how this is what money is, right? So they can be operating from where they came in. And if you're tuning into someone, or maybe your friend or your dad's friend or your family member, they will not suddenly have the knowledge that they did not seem to have on the earth when they were here. Like don't expect them to be a financial expert or a relationship expert just because they've crossed over and they're talking to you. Like if they knew nothing when they were here, chances of them knowing about that subject when they've crossed over, like it just doesn't magically happen, right?
Oh, I love the way you put this. It's so true.
They're still learning. We're all still evolving. Like souls are evolving. This is the reason why we get born on earth. Like this is why we come here.
Yeah, it's so, so true, Kanika. And many times in family constellations, I'll work with my paternal grandmother, and my facilitator will, either put her in the field, or she was showing up for a lot of my sessions for a while. And so one time I felt her come in and my facilitator said, okay, ask your grandmother for some advice about this thing we're working on. And so I asked, and my grandma literally channeled to me, I need you to be the one to figure it out so I can move forward. And I was like, she says I have to be the one to figure it out. She's like, okay. So I had to figure it out. Like I had to because interestingly and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, is that we don't realize that we have so much power on earth to move generations forward that the souls don't have on the other side because they're not reincarnated yet. Do you have any thoughts on that? Because I think about that all the time, just the power we have to be here and do this work now, and how the ancestors are waiting for us.
Yeah, I think we should call this episode something around misconceptions. That's what we are going into, like just the misconceptions in the spiritual world, really.
Oh my God. It's true. It's true. Oh my gosh. I feel like now I'm challenging you.
No, it's all good. It's all good because like a lot of what you're saying, it just totally makes sense, right? Like and what's happening, this is one of the things that I was speaking with another person that I work with as well. And we have a body. It is very underplayed. We feel because we feel the pain, it is underplayed that we are actually here more in power. We have a lot more control, but it is seriously true that because we have a body, we can be our own angel, we can be the best guides, and all the light beings out there, they're here to help us. We just need to call them, we just need to ask for their help. The ancestors, sometimes because they've lost their body, because I was asking the same thing, well, why can't they help themselves out? A lot of times they can be in the dark, they don't know how to cross over, and sometimes it's just a very simple process of going like, well, this is the light, you can go here and look, and now you can just cross over, and it's just holding that space for them. But we hold on to trauma. So coming back to the apple, and maybe you or maybe your ancestor, and this is where we hear the term around soul retrieval as well. Because if you've had a traumatic lifetime, let's say you were killed, you got murdered, whatever traumatic thing happened, and you were not able to recover from that, your body, or the energetically, the body sort of is still hanging around there. This is what these ancestors are doing who've not crossed over fully as yet, because they're there, they're trying to find the answers, they're trying to understand more of what's going on. Energetically, you could say that that's the body or your soul piece that is still there. It's still trying to figure it out in that space. Everything else has moved on. Time wise, everything's moved on, and they're just still there because that's the story that they remember, and they're just shocked by it. And so, as a body, or when we are doing this work, we can show them that light and we can tell them that, hey, I'm holding the space for you in the body, and now you can see the light, you can cross over. And they can do that. Like I've done similar things where I worked with my grandmother a lot, for example. She was very annoyed with me for a very, very long time because I'm not the traditional girl in the family. I've broken up my marriage and other things. And so she was very upset with me. Like, I was not the good girl, so to speak. And then I had to work with her and I had to tell her, well, your time, the story was very different. How things were very different. And how do you want the story to be for women going forward in this family? But it's almost like having a chat, and sometimes they need to have that chat. And when you do that, then they're like, okay. And then she got on board and she's like, okay, now I understand what you're doing with the family and how it's going to help the family, instead of being very subservient or being controlled. Instead of feeling that, they can be more empowered based on the life experience that they've had. Maybe they haven't fully seen Earth after that. They're just remembering it from that lifetime. Remember, we go back to that story of the healing guide who was really trying to help, but his story of how he remembered money was salt. And so salt was poured in. So if you're looking at your ancestors, don't be surprised that they've crossed over, yes, but they might have not lived a life on Earth. So they're still remembering the world from that point in time. So when you talk to them, you get to be that channel and you get to tell them that, okay, this is how you can now think about it. This is what you can do for yourself. And that's why a lot of times they are present and they are here with us, not to hold us back, because they really want to move on and they get stuck.
Yeah, and if somebody's listening who's done FCT with me, this is what the healing statements are. We talk to the ancestors and we say, I'm so sorry that you had the life that you had. I honor the life that you had. Do I have your permission to do things differently out of respect for them? Not that you need their permission per se, but it's out of respect that we honor that we are about to get what they never had, so we can rewrite the story for whatever it is, whether just for healing everybody's soul that's connected to the lineage, or whether they're going to reincarnate back into the lineage. I mean, there's so many different reasons, but I feel like sometimes people don't understand the healing statements to that extent, and you just named that so beautifully. So if anyone has any misconceptions of anything, we have cleared it up in this episode today.
Yeah. And if they're more, like, just bring it in, because we'll intuitively channel that in. We will bring more into this conversation. So that's fine. Yeah.
Well, I laugh honestly, because when I started doing mediumship, a lot of the family members that were coming to me, Not all, but some of them were the ones that no one wanted to speak to, like the abusive grandfather or the cold grandmother or the one that somebody didn't have a good relationship with. And I felt very challenged by that because I was like newly starting all of this and I was like, how am I supposed to tell them all of these things? Like you think that, like for example, I did a family constellation with a good friend of mine, and her abusive grandfather came in who caused a lot of harm in the family system. And this was early on in the beginning. And he came to me, explained what he looked like. She confirmed that that was him. And he said, I need you to tell them I'm very, very sorry. And it was, for me, it was like being in a room where two people are arguing and you're like, oh God, am I supposed to be here? Like, am I supposed to be the person that's saying this for this person? But then you just, because it's so much love and you just know what's about to happen. I communicated it and just the healing that happened from that. But there is a lot of the truth of these ancestors who are coming through who are going through their own healing at the same time as you, just in a different place. And we get to be the holders, the container holders for the energy to come through. And sometimes that can be a little uncomfortable. And sometimes there's a lot of beauty that I mean, most of the time it's a lot of beauty that happens, but sometimes you never know what you're walking into.
Totally. And I think I'll also just put a different perspective on that in terms of ancestral healing, because it can feel like a burden, a lot of times. And for you, it definitely would have felt harder, especially in the beginning. So kudos for continuing with it, because I've seen people go like, oh, I don't like my ancestors at all, and almost fighting, almost like, I don't want you in my space just because of this, because it feels like they're bringing in all the sadder stories or the deeper wounds in their lives as well. So there can be a tendency to feel that. And I understand that. But they're coming in, the ancestors come in because they want a healing. Two, we have a lot more powerful place to be able to hold that space for them. But we forget sometimes, or we're not told about it this way. We have a physical body. For us to be energetically born, we get energy from our ancestors. Like it or not, you got it from them. I mean, there are even scientific studies that prove now, like there was a study done around Holocaust survivors, and they went back and they could look at the third generation people, so who know nothing about their ancestors, who have had this traumatic experience, but those kids were still carrying higher stress and anxiety levels, even when they don't know it. So this is what science has proven just 3 generations before, and there was still that linkage there. Whatever your ancestors have done, we are actually carrying imprints, because that's what I see in my healings. I can see up to 7 circles. There would be, and as I was tuning in the night before, I was just realizing how much deeper that is, because I was realizing when we ground, there's just more layers of ancestors. So I might have just seen 7. There might be even bigger layers that we come up with. Like, we have the reptilian brain, right? If we were not affected by our ancestors, why would we still carry that fight, flight, warning response? And then we tend to focus on the negative. So we tend to focus, okay, this is the negative things that I'm carrying, but literally everything that you've got, you're getting it from your ancestors. So the good thing with the healing is that once you start healing, you also start tuning into the wisdom, to the knowledge that things have been in your lifetime. So sometimes the downloads that you feel that you're getting, the intuitive hits, they can come from up above. So they can come from, another being, another light being who wants to give you some information, someone who wants to have some ideas coming through. It can also come in from your ancestors, especially traditional things, like could be stuff around plant healing, or when you start learning around your body and you just intuitively channel it in and you go like, well, this is better for my body and this seems to make sense this way. There are chances that you are actually drawing that more now from your ancestors, people you know nothing about, because there's nobody in your family who even remembers their name. So that's the beautiful work that happens with this as well.
Oh, beautiful. I could talk to you all day about this because I feel like we are speaking like similar languages and we're seeing it through similar lenses, and just the way you so eloquently describe everything is just, it's beautiful. And I hope that people are really hearing this, knowing that there are so many ways to work with your ancestors, to heal the lineage, to heal the stuff within you. I feel like we could have gone totally into so many other realms, but maybe a part two. Thank you so much for your wisdom and just for sharing everything and really just being such a clear channel for me and for everyone today. I would love if you could share where people can connect with you, how they can work with you, how they can find you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kate. It's been such a cat. It's been such a total pleasure to work with you as well because, it's just amazing tuning into all these different things and having you on the same page as well. It's just been amazing. I love the work that you are doing with your family constellation therapy as well. So it's amazing. I can be found at Kanika Energy Coach, Kanika, Kanika Energy Coach on Instagram, on YouTube. And I love sharing information around just the deeper wounds that we would have. A lot of the stuff that we've talked about. My passion is around helping parents. If there's anything that you're feeling, especially around your parenting journey, co-parenting or legal battles, or just having a difficult time with your child, because often that's a reflection of you, that's where I would love, love, love to help you. Lots of different ways in which we can do this. Like I run a moon meditation circle, I run a parent circle, I do private sessions as well. So just reach out to me and we'll take it from there. And then my website is artoflifecenter.com. This is ART, artoflifecenter.com. And if you go to artoflifecenter.com/parent, I've got a freebie. So that will help you understand your soul contracts in parenting. And it is amazing because it tells you what's the story with your child. Like, why did your child come to you? Why did they pick you as the parent? What is the story that you're healing there? For example, for me, I figured that, oh, my son, there were lots of things that he wanted to learn from me. And he also came in because of my loving or my very giving nature. So part of the thing was where I needed to tell him, hey, you pick up yourself and you walk along. And his area was he wanted to show me a lot of light, a lot of fun in life and how to enjoy life more. And that's absolutely transformed our relationship because just understanding that I can approach it a lot more differently. So that's my gift to everyone.
That's beautiful. I mean, do you do workshops and things where you teach like some of this stuff as well? Because I feel like I would want to join that and just like go deeper on the parenting stuff.
Oh, there are lots of workshops that I do. I'm doing one that is upcoming on astral body and dreaming. So this is what happens when we go to sleep. So we can use the astral body for a lot of things. For example, I've used my astral body to find lost things. I've used astral body to get insights into things like, I'm not able to work out how a program is working, how an application is working. And I'll just go to sleep and I'll go like, well, I need to understand this and can just show it to me in my dream while I'm sleeping. Easy, cool.
This is
Yep.
amazing. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm totally gonna check out some of your work because, like for how woo-woo I can be, I don't really go into some of this other stuff because I'm just so focused on like other things. So I feel like I want to learn more about that, like astral projection and like traveling and all of that. That'd be so
Yeah.
cool.
And then there's so many things that you can do in your sleep. Like you can visit the temple of healing. You can get healings. You can get downloads while you're sleeping. So sleeping is like another sanctuary space. So that's a workshop that I'm doing. So within my parenting circle, I do a lot of workshops like this. There's a workshop that I have on birthing, which is a lot around the womb portal. So connecting with the void.
Yeah.
And when you connect with the void, that's very different. So there's a healing at the soul level, but void. So if you think of the source is the source where we're all born from. So we're all divine beings. We came from there. And the birthplace of source or the birthplace of all the sources is void because everything happened in the void. Everything happened when you look at space pictures, it's that darker space where all the galaxies are. It's that dark background, right? That's the void. So the void is the birthplace of everything. So if we looked at the apple, we looked at, we have so many lifetimes, but everything between that, when you were in the threshold, when you have not incarnated, or when you have incarnated, not been on earth, gone somewhere else, all that story is in the void. And when you connect with that, you really heal yourself, not just lifetimes, you heal that process in between as well. So it's really amazing. I use my workshops to go deeper into just all these mystical topics that I feel interest me. And I also feel that they interest or they impact a lot of our story without us knowing it.
Yeah. Oh,
So
that's
I could
so
just go on
beautiful.
and on talking about my workshops because,
No, I
but that
love it.
too, to give an example.
Yeah, I will definitely be following your work and joining along. And I just want to thank you again for everything that you shared with us today. It was such a wealth of knowledge.
Thanks so much, Kat. It's just been amazing sharing all this stuff with you as well, because it's just amazing all the work that you do and all the love and light that we can spread, and more people can hear it. I just feel very inspired by that because I got started with podcasts myself on my journey when I did not know my answers. So, my hope always is that for the listeners out there, that they leave with a much higher vibration, leave taking away something for themselves.
I mean, we do this for them. I mean, I learned so much in these, but really it's to help expand and help people evolve and grow and feel like they have a community to evolve and grow in. So thank you for being a part of that.
Yeah, and thank you for letting me do that.
All right, guys, if you liked today's episode, don't forget to rate, subscribe, and review the podcast. Give Kanika a follow and let us know what you loved and learned the most of today's episode. Thanks, guys.